Publish. God dang it. All right. 3, 2, 1, go.
Find me in you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back. It's been a while since we've been able to talk to you guys. We have taken a little bit of a hiatus. Call it a vacation. Call it a refreshing couple of weeks off. Call it whatever you want. But, it was nice for us to take a couple weeks off, reevaluate, and take some time so that we didn't get burnt out on delivering you guys a bona fide message of genuine conversation. And we've got another one lined up for you today. We've got a topic tonight that we're all very passionate about, and we're excited to present some insight and perspective to you guys. Hopefully you enjoy it. Today's talk is going to be about masculinity, what it means to be a man in 2020, what it means to be a man, period. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff today. First off, I want to introduce our co-host. As always, we have the three legends. We've got Cameron Campbell. We've got Blake Manzer. And then finally, and least, we have Brian Edwards. Hey, Brian.
Brian Edwards.
Last and least.
Brian, you upgraded. You got a mic, dude. Or have you recorded yet with a mic?
Yeah, you weren't here.
I think I had one.
That's right.
Yeah, I think you've had one or two.
That was episode
Awesome,
12
dude.
when Garrett wasn't with us.
The infamous Missing Garrett episode. Right on. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, good deal. So we have been getting better at our sound quality along the way. Hopefully we're getting better content producing. But anyway, fellas, you know how we're going to start. Brian, hold it up. What you got?
So this one, I'm drinking out of a glass, but this is the can. It's called the Purist Clean Lager. So I like, light beers or stouts. And this one, I don't know. It tastes like a watered down Bud Light. It's whatever. I did the whole go to the liquor store, pick out something random, see if I get a surprise and like it. And I didn't like it, but I'm drinking it. So
It's because there's only 3 carbs. You beta.
3
and 95
carbs.
calories, but it's organic. 3.8% alcohol.
Cool.
Huh.
Wow.
Yeah. Don't buy it.
Interesting.
I don't know. Your
Fair enough.
girlfriend might like it.
Oh, damn. So
Interesting.
we're definitely cutting off any possibility of getting sponsored by New Belgium then.
Yeah, that's
Cameron,
fine.
go ahead, dude.
I just got some water tonight.
Right on.
The old,
That's the
Sober
purist right there.
October.
Cheers, mate.
yeah, somewhat.
Besides
So
2
just trying
weekends
to-
ago.
So I'm just trying to drink less during the week, Still having fun on the weekends and when I'm with the boys. But
Right on.
a little water
Beautiful.
tonight.
I feel it. Blake, what you got?
All right, so I've got a creative little concoction that I brewed up here. I call it the vodka vitamin water.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
I
That
mulled
sounds like
over
blackout waiting to happen.
I mulled over a name for a while, but settled on something creative in my mind.
Vodka water.
No, vodka vitamin water. There's vitamins in here. It's for my new
Vitamin vodka.
Damn, I should have come
There
up
you
Vodka
go.
min water.
Ah, I get it. It's
with
fitting.
vitamin vodka.
Vodka min.
All right,
right.
Garrett, what do you got?
All right, real quick, we got to touch on this. So tough weekend of sports, guys.
God.
Really,
Oh, yikes.
really tough weekend of sports. I think we all got hit pretty hard. The Dogs, Georgia Bulldogs, they got embarrassed by Alabama this weekend.
Yikes.
Rough game.
Big yikes.
Brian, I tried warning you guys that what was going to happen. Y'all didn't listen, but it's okay.
No, Stetson Bennett threw 3 picks. That's what happened. He couldn't throw over
Yeah.
the middle of the field because he's 5'11".
Dude, Stetson Bennett's he's a great story. Okay, cool.
He's not a
He's a great
championship winning.
He's a great story. I love that he's a walk-on. He's stuck with the sport. He's being rewarded for his hard work now. But, dude, that's like the equivalent of me walking out there with my 5'11 average-looking ass, throwing some balls over grown ass 6'5", 300-pound men. It's not going to be a recipe for a championship. And Georgia, every single year right now, they're competing for a championship. So I encourage the Dogs to see what else they got at quarterback. But, the season's not over for you guys.
Yeah. I just one thing to say, and I won't touch on it much more. I heard something today where, Clemson, Trevor Lawrence, Ohio State, Justin Fields, and then Bama, Mac Jones, but then again, Bama's Bama is kind of different league of its own. All of them have high ceilings, and if you compare them to Stetson Bennett, do you really think like he's going to be the one that takes you like that far, or would you rather have some rough games developing somebody that is just naturally more talented, like a JT or a Dwan
Right.
Mathis, and take the short-term hits to take you longer in the long run? Because Georgia football the past 3 years, I mean, we've gone to some big games, but then we've flopped. So I don't know, change it up.
Yeah, no, absolutely, dude. It's tough sledding right now for the Dogs, but like we said, the expectations are high, and if they don't get to the SEC championship or championship game, it's gonna be rough sailing for the coaches and everyone involved. In my opinion, personally, what really devastated me this weekend, my Atlanta Braves last night choked.
Damn.
As I choke up here, about to cry.
Yikes.
They choked, and Atlanta fans all over the state, all over the Southeast, are not surprised. As sad as that is, we've dealt with this our entire lives, fellas. Falcons, Dogs, Bravos, up and down. I mean, we've just been heartbroken so many times, and I wonder when it's going to change. Like, when is the narrative going to change, and when is Atlanta going to be, taking over the sports world? Right now, we're the butt of the joke, and I'm not happy about it.
Hey, but the Falcons won.
Somebody told me today. They said I have a theory. Every time the Falcons win, all the other teams lose, and I'm like, the Falcons should have lost this weekend, then taking one for the team. But
Yeah.
anyway, we're not a sports podcast, but I just want to shout out the Bravos, man. This such a great year watching those guys play, and hopefully some good things in the future. And all of you Atlanta sports fans out there who are at your wits' end, just be patient. And let's just stick to our teams and hope for the best going forward. Be there for one another. Encourage one another. Talk them off the ledge. Let's get through this together. All right. We're not a sports podcast, so we'll dive in a little bit here.
It's a masculine way for us to start off.
You got that right.
Very
Alpha
masculine.
moves only. So yeah, like we talked about tonight, we got masculinity is our theme. It's for young men that host this podcast together. It's something that we all kind of see through different lens. We all grew up in different households. Different familial backgrounds, so we're all different in that way. Obviously we are from the same area, so take that with what you will, but we all offer different perspectives here. And as young men, we are right now building our own lives. We are starting careers, we are starting families in the foreseeable future. We're making decisions now that will forever impact our lives. We're getting involved in our communities. We're starting to be leaders of other men and other people. So what better time than now to define what it means to be a man? What are some, why has it become a controversial topic to speak openly about masculinity? We're going to touch on that a little bit. What exactly can we do in the future to shine a brighter light on men, specifically good men? Not all men are created, good. So we're going to talk about all that today. But fellas, I kind of want to get started off and talk about why is masculinity under attack? Why is it that, today it seems like you have to kind of take a back seat when discussions, are brought about at dinner parties, at gatherings, and just kind of take yourself out of the equation just because you're fearful of, stepping on someone's toes, or just, feeling like, sometimes I don't know. Why is masculinity under attack? Let's kind of talk about that and try and define that issue.
Yeah, so I think a big reason why it's become such a controversial topic of, in recent times is just how soft our culture has become. Life has become real easy for most people. Um, everyone's got their own financial hardships and things like that, but it's pretty easy to live as a human being today. The world, all the corners in the world today are nerfed. Everyone's always trying to protect someone from someone else. We're seeing that especially right now with the whole coronavirus issue, trying to protect everyone as much as possible. Kind of clamping down on everyone's safety, and that's may not always be the best thing, right? If you focus too hard on safety, then you start bringing in some restrictions. But I think life is just it's become a lot softer and yeah, just easier to get by compared to how it was maybe 50, 100 years ago when it wasn't as easy to survive.
I got a real quick, Blake, to add on to that. I got a quote for you. This is just kind
Oh
of like
boy.
a old wiseism. Hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing right now. We've got a lot of weak men in our culture who are grown, like you said, easy times. We live in easy living right now. And because of that, things are easier to come by and the problems compound. So, Blake, Cameron, what do y'all think about all that? What do you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, going off what Blake was saying, I think it is a little too soft, um, a little too, nursing. Like it's, nursing to those needs, and like you said, every corner's nerfed, and it's almost like you have a motherly shield in culture today to like shield you from all the bad things, and I mean, it's all about balance, really, and that's what's so important, I think, in a two-parent household, is having that balance between the feminine energy of like caring, a lot about safety and everything, and then maybe the masculine energy of maybe proactive safety, or then um, just dealing with stuff as it comes to you. But it's always about balance, and and right now I'd say there's an imbalance, a massive imbalance.
Yeah,
Right on.
I haven't heard until today the that corner analogy, how the corners are nerfed, but personally, I think I learn my best lessons quite like literally falling down and fucking my face up or something. I can tell you 3 different times in college where I was doing some stupid shit and literally I have like scars on my face because of it. And that's how you learn, by literally falling and fucking shit up. And it's like, all right, well maybe that was kind of stupid. And then you go and you kind of like learn. And you're like, all right, well if I didn't do that, then why wouldn't have happened. So maybe going forward, I won't do that. But like Blake and Cameron said, the corners are nerfed. Like kids growing up nowadays, like with all the the tech and stuff, like they don't have the ability to go and physically actually fuck something up and see like, oh, maybe I need to learn stuff like that. So just not having rugged corners to and like learning experiences. So,
Yeah, I think it's that whole like everyone gets a trophy mindset. You don't want to make
yeah,
people feel bad. But the problem with that is if you don't know what it's like to lose, then you don't know how good it feels when you win. And
yeah,
so, you know, losing and failing is an important part in, succeeding in things because you feel how bad that is. If you're on a baseball team and the other team beats you, that's not a good feeling. And after you're going to do whatever you can to make sure that you don't have that same feeling again and try to win. And that seems like the
yeah.
mindset, or at least an increasing in popularity mindset that's relatively new, I think, in our culture's history.
Yeah, I think the neutralness of it just really drives complacency, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I'd
Yeah.
say it's
Whereas, go ahead,
I'd
Cameron.
say it's built. Yeah, I was just gonna say it's built in a little bit in our education system. Like, just you think about, how soft everything is, and how, I mean, of course, like, bullying's not good, but how, like, overprotective some people can be about certain people's feelings and stuff. Like, yes, your feelings are going to get hurt. Like, this is a part of growing up and part of, becoming a better person later on, is going through some of these hardships. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And building on top of that, Cameron, with the education system, that was actually kind of recently pointed out to me. It's pretty interesting perspective, but it makes sense. Like, think about it when you were a kid, teacher, you and your buddy would be wrestling or like chasing each other on the playground or like jumping on the monkey bars, whatever. And teachers are always, just like, hey, quit doing that, quit chasing each other, quit wrestling. You're going to, scuff up your elbows, kind of talking like what you guys were talking about with the corners and stuff. Like, boys seemingly more and more by the year are disencouraged from acting like boys, disencouraged from, acting out their nature of competitiveness, of, desire to adventure, a desire to, just learn and just learn by failing, like we talked about. I think that's kind of becoming a very common, more and more by theme now, like in households, but also in school. Boys are just disencouraged from acting like boys, acting out their nature. What do you guys think about
Yeah, this is a weird take, but something I was thinking about. Like being like talking about like the education system, I just picture Macedonia Elementary. How many kids ate shit on those monkey bars, and how
that?
many
Yeah,
kids
dude.
did we see with a broken arm or something? Like I would love to know, and like I don't have the facts or stats to back it, my assumption, but
Right.
I bet there's probably a fewer broken arms running around the playground if they even get to do that nowadays. You know,
How many times did you eat shit on those monkey bars, Brian?
all the times.
Yeah, I definitely broke
100%.
my arm once, at least once on the monkey bars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Broke
don't
my
worry,
collarbone 3 times, dude.
God.
Jesus.
I actually did not know that. Wow.
I mean, it's
So you were,
understandable because boys
yeah.
we're pretty stupid.
Yeah,
So
for
We
sure.
stupid, dude.
we brought it
That's
on
fucking
ourselves.
hilarious.
It can be very stupid. And that's what it's always good to have, like I was saying, almost like that motherly shield. Like, mothers and women are very good, and they have like an extra sense of like safety and precaution about them. That's
Yeah.
very good. um
Hmm.
but if you're like overly mothered, if maybe, you only have a mother at home, and then you're going to school and you only have female teachers, and it's just like having mother all the time, and you don't really learn how to fail. And of course they can, they're capable of letting you learn, maybe more like a father would, just letting you, run into whatever you're going to run to, and then you'll learn your lesson. But it's all about the balance, like I was saying.
I think
Okay.
Sure.
something to add to that is like the modern family dynamic. I mean, we
Mm.
see the stats now. I don't know what the specific number is, but like roughly half of all families have like at least one side divorce or something like that. So there is like an absent view for kids growing up of what a solidified family dynamic looks like in this modern world. And um whether it's an absentee father to where the kid doesn't get a solid picture growing up of what it looks like for a man to not only like have masculine traits and stuff like that, but to lead a family unit, how we historically think of it all the way back to hunter gatherers, stuff like that. um so I think that kind of feeds into what you're saying too. And it's kind of interesting to think about.
Yeah. So absolutely. Let me get back on track here. Absolutely. I think the family dynamic is a huge part of kind of where we are with, this generation to generation lack of passing on what it means to be a man. So I have a question for you guys, with divorce at the highest rate it's ever been, with families splitting up at the highest rate that it's ever happened, with many guys growing up without a father in the household. these people, where do they learn how to become a man? Like how, what platforms, or where exactly do they learn how to grow up and be a man? Like what are some examples?
I think role models are huge for
Mhm.
me.
Yeah.
Given my like family dynamic growing up. Um, so for those of you who like don't know, my dad passed away 2 years ago. So I had this weird view to where like I was growing up, my dad has problems growing up, alcoholism, stuff like that. So kind of like a rough family dynamic, but still a family. And then you go to having a widowed mother, and just kind of seeing that you growing up, I had specific role models of what I thought it was like to be a man, and kind of drove my vision, and that completely affects like the way I think about it even to this day. And we'll get into role models a little later on,
Yeah.
but really just like it can be a role model, or it can be a book you read, or just having some medium to explore that and define it for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
definitely.
humans just naturally gravitate towards a role model, and for a lot of lucky people, that is their dad, and for sure their mom too. Um, but we all gravitate towards one or two people that we look up to and try to model our lives after. We see their successes and we're like, hey, I want to be successful too. How can I be like that?
Hmm.
And for some people who don't grow up with that in their life, they f- they find some authoritative, wow, that was hard to say, authoritative figure in their life. And sometimes that figure just isn't the best role model to look up to. We see that a lot in inner cities, with the whole dynamic there. But we all got to look up to someone, and yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So for a lot of people, it is their dad. If they're not lucky enough to, have a dad around that they can look up to, it makes it especially hard if they had a dad that they thought they could look up to, and then he lets them down. Like that's especially bad. But anybody around them that just like that they can gravitate towards, and that's the problem with them not being like your parents and somebody that should really love you unconditionally, is that they can do what I was just saying is, you might think they're going to be the person that's going to be that role model, or you think it's somebody that you can trust, and then they turn out not to be, and that can really mess you up as a younger person. But yeah, it's the people around them, like Brian said, the books they read and stuff in like media. Just like, you're always watching TV as a kid. All of us, no matter if you had a dad or not. Like I had a dad, but I still found a lot of stuff in media and stuff around me to build my basis for masculinity off of, like what being a man looks like. Cartoons, superheroes, stuff like that. Football
Yeah.
players,
Yeah.
sports athletes.
Cameron, I'm glad you brought that up. Looking at the landscape today, not really us, but kind of like kids right now, going forward. What do you think the landscape is like today, in media, whether it be social media, whether it be just pop culture with TV shows, movies, all the things that are produced, and put on Netflix and, all that other stuff that's absorbed by people who are growing into the world right now. What's the landscape like for them growing up right now? And, what are some things that they might be learning that we didn't necessarily learn from, pop culture, when we were growing up just a decade or two ago?
Yeah. My take on it is a lot of it's kind of unhealthy with how
Yeah.
social media is still like it's in its infancy. You think about technology and how it exponentially grows. Like this is only the start. I mean, Instagram was in 2014, is when it really started picking up. But you just never know. And the point I try to make is like it's really important. And kids like between 7 to 15, like they don't have the life experience to know like how to properly develop their mind, and the things that they spend time on every day is subconsciously like programming them. So I think it's like really dangerous climate today, to where kids are so impressionable and the things that they dedicate their attention to are going to be the things and the habits they subconsciously have picked up and do in the years to come. So I don't know, it's weird. I'm glad I'm not a kid in today's age. That's for sure.
Yeah, the sheer amount of information that the younger generation is exposed to today is so much more than what we were exposed to. And we were exposed to an infinite amount more information than what our parents were exposed to. And you really, I was listening to a podcast last week, and it was kind of talking about parenting and the effect, like what uh, what affects someone into adulthood and how it like affects their personality. And for, obviously, your parents have a huge influence on who you become as a person, but for the most part, it's how you develop as a person is what you're exposed to growing up, not just how your parents raise you, but um, your friends, what you watch on TV or are exposed to on Twitter or other forms of social media. It's just, the way that you interface with the world is what's going to shape you. And with how much media that or the way that media in all forms dominates our lives today, has got to have a huge impact on the way that the current generation is growing up today.
Okay, real quick, let's kind of get back to this like main question, and let's just kind of wrap this up, and we'll move on to defining masculinity. But why do we think that masculinity is under attack? Why? What exactly has changed in our lifetimes that has created an environment to where being a man's almost frowned upon? Is it a political movement? Is it a social movement? Is it the media that we consume? Is it our education system encourages it? Is it just bad men who are painting a terrible picture for good men across the globe? It could be you know a combination of all those things. But if you guys were to choose one, or if we want to move in one direction or a couple directions, what do y'all think?
It's the liberals.
It's the what?
The liberals.
It's all those libtards.
It's always, dude, it's always the liberals. I mean, let's be real. But just like to kind of boil it down, though, I mean,
I think it's
what do y'all
media.
think? Yeah.
I think it's media and grabbing, because I mean, media makes their money off stuff that gets a lot of reactions and views and different hits and whatnot. And it's easy to call a man a pig or something like that and have that story blow up. And you combine that with like a modern feminism movement. It's really easy for stuff like that to get blown out of proportion. And I'm not saying that sometimes like men don't do shitty things, because we're all human. We definitely do. But I think just with media and the rapid like spread of information nowadays and the need to get, you know, punchy headlines and stuff, it's really easy to shit on men in today's society. And I think media has a responsibility, as we're seeing even nowadays in different subjects, to it's just what they push, because it gets a lot of attention.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think.
Go ahead,
Go ahead,
Cameron.
Cameron.
Go. No, you can go ahead, Blake. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I'm gonna be the.
Oh my God. We're not letting you guys wave each other through the stop sign and you just keep looking at each
Come
other.
on.
No, you come. No, you
No,
come.
you go.
Okay, Blake, go ahead, Manzer.
All right. Yeah, just going off of what Brian was saying, a big part of it is media, both in the traditional form and social media, and a lot of it is it's just virtue signaling. People trying to look good, trying to puff their chests so that they get likes and retweets on Twitter or likes on Instagram. And so, sometimes they do use fair arguments, with the saying that men have started all the wars, which is kind of, I mean, while that's true, that's kind of, a low blow. Uh, it's one of those buzzwords. But I think a lot of it is just virtue signaling, trying to make yourself look good in front of the people who follow you on those sites.
Yeah.
That's what media has come to today with social media, and that's definitely bad for kids that are on it like very young, and they don't understand why people are posting like what they're posting. Like now that we're at an age where we can kind of decipher, like, that person's doing that for money. That's it's kind of obvious, like, why people are doing stuff and what their motives are. um but then if you go back, like, to the earliest media, and also what you said, Blake, is liberals, the you know go back in history, the liberals of, I'd say the 60s, did a whole revolution, a whole cultural revolution happened in the 60s. And I think big part because of media, but also a lot of other factors.
Mm.
But there was stuff like the sexual revolution, the modern feminism started in the 60s. A lot of stuff changed, and I think a lot of ideologies were kind of not born, but put toward the forefront in, like, education systems and in the media. And I think technology in the country was just progressing so fast that they thought the culture should change too. But there's moral and cultural values based in how the people lived in, the 50s, and then back before that in the 1800s, like. So, but the 60s, it all changed with media. And
Yeah. Yeah, I think you guys are all spot on. I guess I'll try to offer a little bit of different perspective here. Um, I think, to boil it down, I think men have just forgotten how to truly be men on like a grand scale. I think the easiest way to answer and solve this question is just to, take responsibility for our own breed, I guess, other men. Like, I mean, think about it, like you mentioned, the 60s, like things changed, cultural revolution, right? And like, I think just over the generations, as women have really fought really hard to progress in society. I mean, it's crazy the things that women are doing these days. I mean, it's awesome. Um, there are some people out there who want to tear down men as like a threat. The way I look at it is, I think men and women are just built different. They're just built different, right? Like we have different
yeah,
chemical, physical makeups and we just, we do better at different things and whatever. But besides the point, I just think that men just along the way have just forgotten how to be men. We've lost the ability to truly communicate with one another. We're looking to media, to absorb our time and to, you know, um, chase this complacent life, this comfortable life, these good times, like we talked about earlier. Like we're not really concerned with personal growth. We're just concerned with what are we doing this weekend, and what can I post on Twitter that'll get a lot of likes and all that kind of stuff. Like that's the kind of stuff that we're worried about right now. And I just think that mentality, along with just like a generation, maybe a couple generations of just men forgetting how to be men. I don't know exactly what the root cause is there. Maybe it's the fact that I have no idea. I don't even want to speculate. I really don't know. But
the agricultural revolution,
maybe, dude, more
grocery stores.
less people are working on less guys working on farms and learning work ethics. Less guys are going to war and learning what it means to be an American and loving their country. And more guys are living in the suburbs in a affluent lifestyle with a spoon in their ass, and they're learning nothing. Honestly, they're just learning to grow up, go to school, go to college, get drunk, and go get a job and die. I mean, like seriously though. I mean, that's
Yeah,
think about our peers. Think about the people who have this mentality. Like, there's nothing more than that, and that comes down to absent fathers. It comes down to a lot of things, but we won't dive too deep into that. So we've all kind of offered our perspective there. What I really, really want to talk about today, though, is defining what it means to be a man. Like we talked about earlier, we all have different familial backgrounds. We all have aligned views on a lot of things, but I think we all offer different perspective on our insight here, just based on our experiences. The all the above. So who wants to start off and talk about what it means to them to be a man and what masculine qualities they think are important?
Take it. So what I kind of think is, and then it's back to the family unit like mentality for me. It's up to a man to, obviously come together with a woman, start the family if that's what they choose to do, and then really just like work together with, king and queen mentality to chart out their life, see what they want to do. Maybe both of them want to work for 10 years, put in some sweat equity, make a lot of money, start a business, do something like that, and then raise a family, have the ability to, kind of live life on their own terms. Um, and I feel like I'm projecting a lot of what I want to do with my life.
It's fair.
But I just think it really comes down to being the head of a household, leading a family unit, and creating a life with you know those in your family.
Mm.
I realize that's very broad.
No, that's
but,
that's awesome.
yeah.
Right on. Blake?
Wait,
Yeah, I think the traditional nuclear family is an important part um, of uh, of being a man. Some key characteristics that I think when I think of someone who I would want to look up to, just in terms of like just masculine energy, is someone who has like honor and integrity, someone who has a good set of morals, a basic structure that he uh, bases his life around, and that he just someone who does the right thing, for not just himself but for other people. Um,
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, just
Yeah,
honor I think is a key underlying word there.
for sure. I was going to say that I think, one of the most important things a man can do, like to be masculine, is be a father. And that's right in line with what you were saying, some of the things that, you would want to see out of your father. And if you are a father, you should want to show to your children is the honor and the integrity and the things you do. So yeah, I mean, I think becoming a father is probably going to change our outlook on a lot of things. It's probably going to bump up our morality in some sense because we'll have a heightened awareness of, you know, children and the things, developmental things, and so I think it's very important, to be a father, and
Mm.
to be a good one, to try and raise good children forces you to try and be a good person yourself. You know, can't raise good children, just be like piece of shit, really.
Well, you can, yeah, but you're gonna
Yeah, you can. It
you're
happens. Everyone's
right.
yeah. Every scenario is different, and you can turn out, great and have a really bad, you know, starting. But yeah, the goal is to
A rotten seedling raises rotten fruit, right? Yeah.
yeah.
Um. All right, Cameron. Well, if you're wrapped up, a couple things for me. I think just after hearing all this talk, I mean, this is the one word that like has really been resonating with me, and I'm sure with you guys. But like, I think what transitions a boy, a young man, whatever you want to call it, into becoming an actual grown man is one word. I think it's responsibility. I know that's super broad, super vague, but think about it. Okay. Think about, being a college kid or being a high school kid and just going through the motions, hanging out with your buddies, just like doing all the things that you want to do. Okay. And then, going to college, getting drunk, doing the things that you want to do, right? That favor yourself. They're self-imposed ideas. Okay. Um, Now, whenever it is that you decide to grow up, you take on responsibility. You start a job, you get a girlfriend, you get a wife, you start to have kids, you get a mortgage, you buy a car, all these things. Like you're creating responsibility by making these decisions. And because of you making these decisions, you are living for more than yourself. You're living for others. So, responsibility is a huge thing for me. That goes into everyday decisions, whether it's, you see a piece of trash on the side of the road and you decide to pick it up. That's responsibility. But that's also integrity, like Blake mentioned. It's just like,
Integrity.
it's just those little things, okay? Like, those good values, like you mentioned, like of integrity and integrity. God, I'm gonna start laughing. Integrity and and all that. So I think responsibility is huge. I think it's so big, and if we talk about what's kind of caused this world of weak men, it's men who aren't willing to take responsibility. You know, people
Or
who just aren't willing.
aren't forced to be
Right,
responsible.
right. Absolutely, dude. And I think that's just such a big problem. And obviously I've had my stints of not taking responsibility. I'll take full responsibility for that.
For not
But like,
taking responsibility.
right. But dude, I mean, I don't know, man. Like it's almost like becoming a man, like it just hits you. Like I feel like you just kind of just wake up and like you start making little decisions that will lead you into this direction. Okay. You know, one thing I think about is like, people are a culmination of the decisions that they make, big and small. Um, whether it is you decide to wake up and run in the morning, whether it is you decide to eat healthy, whether it is you decide to go to church, start a podcast, play Xbox, whatever it is that you decide to do, you are a culmination of your choices that you make on a daily basis. Every small choice leads in a different path. So responsibility is huge. Another thing I've been really thinking about recently. So I don't know if you guys know Andy Frisella, but he had a really interesting podcast I listened to a couple weeks ago. He calls it his equation to happiness. And I want to see what you guys think about this. Okay. So Andy Frisella, he's a, big time influencer or whatever. His equation to happiness is, if I can think of it here. Okay. Discipline plus purpose plus gratitude equals happiness. I thought that was very profound because that's not like very typical, but discipline I think is huge. Being able to have accountability for yourself and the decisions that you make, purpose, what's your life goal? What do you want to do with your life? We talked about that episode 10, I believe. That's a big one to go check out. And gratitude, just being appreciative of yourself and the things around you, your life that you've been given, the blessings that you have, counting your blessings.
Yeah.
I agree. I love discipline. The fact of we all have our the whiteboards charting the paths and whatnot, but you can have motivation for a month or two, but if you don't have the discipline when you don't feel like doing shit, you're not going to get there. Like discipline is the builder. It's the tool that gets you from A to Z. Without discipline, I would argue, I don't know, maybe you can go hit the lottery and get really lucky, but without discipline and the plan and the wherewithal to do it, even if when you feel like shit or I don't know, you don't feel like doing something, like if you can't address that right in the second and go and do that, you're just not gonna, you won't have happiness because you won't get where you want to go and the path you charted for yourself.
Yeah.
I love Andy Frisella. He's a huge hard ass. I can't listen to him too much just because he's so intense, but he has solid principles.
Hell yeah.
One thing that that I just thought of, and Brian, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this too, was like growing up in scouting. I feel like that's a pretty good structure for young men in developing themselves into being a good man. Uh, one of the mottos I always heard going through scouting was that it was a program to turn boys into men. You start off in Cub Scouts, go through Boy Scouts, and it gives you a good structure where you can take on that personal responsibility. You're in your troop, you take on the role as the patrol leader, as the head of your own little unit. You step up to senior patrol leader, where you're in charge of that whole troop. And the whole idea behind that, at least in our troop, Brian, was that the whole thing was like led by the scouts. You know, we're the ones who ran the meetings. We're the ones who came up with what we wanted to do for that meeting, whether it was working on some merit
Mm.
badge or developing some sort of skill, and then planning some camp out. And part of that, assuming responsibility is a big part of that. But discipline also falls right in line with that. You got to have that discipline to come, especially as the leader of your troop. You got to have the discipline to sit down and uh, come up with a plan for that meeting. Or when you're in the Appalachian Mountains in mid-December, it takes some discipline not to just start bawling your eyes out when it's 10 degrees, raining, and you're just you're sitting in soaking wet clothing, still
Shivering in your tent.
shivering in your tent, and still trying to survive in that
It
environment.
takes some discipline and a nice embrace of a warm scout leader.
God
Right,
damn
Mansur?
it! No.
Yes.
He went there.
Oh, damn it.
Sorry, dude. No, I was
Uh,
I was loving what you were saying there. I'm sorry, dude. But that was
I knew that was coming. It was just a
you just
matter of
set me up
time.
with a T-ball there.
I thought you were gonna say
Um,
integrity.
yeah.
Just
But
takes a little
hey,
integrity.
just to add on to that beautiful statement, Blake, is sports are very similar. I know you guys are scouts. I didn't do scouts, I did sports, and a lot of those lessons that you learn in scouts, I learned in sports, man. I mean, like playing football, there's 11 men on a field and you have a job every single play, and it takes discipline to keep your weight, takes discipline to, do your job on a play, all that kind of stuff. So like, I think it's really important to like get involved in something, some kind
Yeah.
of group bigger than yourself, to where you can contribute to the team and you can, learn things from others. You can have an influential role model in your life, all that kind of stuff. Coaches, scout leaders, et
Yeah.
cetera, that can kind of lead you in the right direction. And being accountable to teammates, that's another buzzword for manhood is accountability.
Mhm.
So you can learn a lot of those things in your life involuntarily if you just get involved with something bigger than yourself.
Yeah, being part of a team is big.
Mhm.
Where other people count on you.
Yeah. Did you guys have anything else on that?
I don't.
Okay. Well, let me add this then and see where you guys are. Another thing, and this is kind of not like on the beaten path, I guess, but I want to see what you guys think about this. This is more like biblical masculinity, and we won't get too much into like, this is not a religious podcast. We all have religious values, I think, but anyway. So, being a servant, okay, is kind of a key part of masculinity in the Bible, and basically the way I think of it is, being a servant to the Lord Almighty, but on this earth, being a servant to your wife, being a servant to your community, your family, being a servant to your community. I know servant is like a weird word because it kind of puts you below someone else, but that's just like the way I think about it is putting yourself below something else for the greater purpose of accomplishing the goal, whether that be creating a successful family, having a great relationship with your wife, or being a contributing member of your community, putting yourself below that, putting your ego to the side, and serving others is a big part of being a man. What do you guys think about that?
Have you heard of the notion of servant leadership?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
essentially, servant leadership is definitely something I resonate with. And I think ultimately it's something that, drives people to be even more successful than they would be if they were just working to personally serve themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll just introduce the topic, and if I butcher it, feel free to pick it up. But from my understanding, it's essentially the notion that leaders that work to, serve those that are under them and ultimately can project a vision and a plan that will ultimately benefit those below them more so than putting their own desires behind the strategy and plan, ultimately work to serve those below them. And some argue that, like they are more successful because of it, because they're able to remove themselves from the equation
Mm-hmm.
and see how they can generate the most value for the most people below them, and in
Mm-hmm.
terms, grow more. And I feel like I kind of butchered that, but I don't know.
No, that
Well,
makes sense.
I mean, okay, think about it in your daily lives. Okay, you run into somebody and you can tell that they're just very self-absorbed. They're very like egotistical, very, like all they care about is themselves, talks only about themselves, whatever. Just, picture that in your head. Think about how you like think about that person. You're just kind of like, oh yeah, like if they asked me for a favor, I probably wouldn't do anything for them. Think about the person instead that you run into at the grocery store and they are like, oh my God, how are you doing? Like they just like, really invested in you. They're thinking about you and like, they're just trying to, get inside your head, learn more about you and all that kind of stuff. If they called you the next day and said, hey man, like, I'm on hard times. Can you help me with this? You'd be more likely to help them with that. Right. I think that's kind of the concept there is like, how people treat us, if they're self-absorbed, then we're going to be self-absorbed when it comes to helping them, I guess. Yeah, kind of like an analogy.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah, for
mirroring
But
sure.
thing.
yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So those are just kind of, do you have anything else to add before we move on to like the next thing?
No,
No, I think y'all nailed that.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, great. Well, those are a few, things that we think about as far as what it means to be a man for us. So we all agree that, masculinity is definitely being challenged, suppressed, it's toxic, it's awful, whatever, there's a lot of narratives out there. So let's kind of create like an action plan, like going forward, starting with us for taking responsibility upon our own hands. What can we do going forward to kind of foster healthy masculinity? One thing that we talk about a lot on the show is like, we can only control what we can control. The things in our life, our specific reality. What can we do in our lives to kind of foster healthy masculinity and change the world going forward?
it's just leading by example. And I keep finding myself, whenever we mention masculinity and mixing it with the word leadership. But
Mm,
as I've kind of
Absolutely.
explained with like the family dynamic, that's just kind of how I view the word, um, for lack of a better term, having, the sack to lead a family unit and, make hard decisions and, buck up when you need to buck up, but use empathy when you don't, like, and just, you know, learning how to lead, just kind of how I think of it, and leading by example, and just
mm,
using that and fostering it in everyday life.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Letting your actions speak louder than your words, and also just having a good set of morals to base your day around and to base your life around. Try to avoid some of the temptations that are going to lead you down a bad path, and to set yourself apart, or set yourself outside of a certain situation, when it might be a controversial situation, and just fall back on your morals. Think what would the right thing be to do here. And yeah, just take responsibility for your actions, and try to make those actions good actions.
Mhm. Yeah, remove yourself from the equation and try to think objectively.
Yeah.
Um, I used the word empathy earlier, and it had me thinking. We've got something on here, a term toxic masculinity, and I think this is something, especially today, that it's important to talk about, and it's getting some more, light shed on it. Um, but so toxic masculinity, what is that? What does it mean? So the way I think of it, and after some Google searches, it's pretty much how men are thought of traditionally. And I always think of like a hardened, Vietnam veteran about toxic masculinity. The guy that is an emotional void, he was taught to suck it up and stop bitching and get something done and, stop being a wuss. Feelings make you weak. You need to be hard. You need to be, battle ridden, like, ready to go, and stop, you know, crying or stuff like that, So it's
Mm.
erasing the emotion from man, essentially, is how I think of it. And I think, as a leader, trying to completely erase emotions, and you can't think objectively all the time. And part of having empathy is understanding how humans make decisions, and that it's not always rational. And some people, a lot of people, quite frankly, are emotionally driven. So, understanding that, when being a leader and when trying to, you know, portray masculinity.
Well said. If you want any evidence of people not always thinking with rationale, go watch the 2020 presidential ad campaigns. Go watch the commercials, and you tell me if those commercials are preaching logic or if they're if it's pathos or if it's ethos. You tell me, because 99% of them are appealing right to your emotions, because that's just how human nature is. Our emotions trigger this thing in our brain that makes us pay attention, and logic is sometimes hard to come by. So well said, Brian. I think empathy is a big thing. But you don't want too much empathy. I think you said it right, though. Like, you don't want
The
too much
balance.
empathy to where you're always in someone else's head. You need to balance it so that you understand where someone else is coming from, so that you can find a solution to a problem, or have whatever it is that you need to do in that situation. It's a big part of
Yeah.
leadership for sure.
Yeah, balance is very healthy in being in the healthy masculine. Like, you got to be confident. Like I think Brian was saying with what that idea of maybe toxic masculinity might be, the like a traditional masculine. You got to be super confident. But I mean, in reality, you also got to have a lot of humility to be, a servant leader. So it's all about balance, and I think understanding that is what makes a healthy man. And part of that's knowing your morals, like Blake was saying, knowing your morals and your principles and being and standing by them, and you know basing your actions off of those morals and principles, to be a leader, to take responsibility, uh, and it's it's like we should all be doing what the motto of every police force is: serve and protect. We should all be doing that as men. So that's another thing. Like I was saying with like grocery stores and the agricultural revolutions, like that's a responsibility that we pushed off. Like, I'm not responsible for bringing home food. I'm just, I bring home the money and go just get the food. I'm not responsible for, serving and protecting. We have the police to do that. So I think it falls on every man's shoulders to do that, really. So
Good point.
it's about accepting that responsibility.
Cool. Blake?
Yeah, I mean, just I feel like you guys have said everything that's been kind of on my mind.
Yeah.
I don't really know what to
Let's
add.
do
Right on.
this. We mentioned earlier like role models. Who can y'all think of? I mean, you probably have multiple, honestly, with different facets of your childhood, growing up, stuff like that. But who were your role models that y'all think embodied, what it meant to be a man or a leader, really?
Yeah, definitely. I'll start off. I think, I'm lucky enough to have a large family. I've got a lot of men in my family that I've been able to look up to my whole life. I would say I'm gonna you choose multiple here. My dad, grandfather, and uncle. All offer completely different like points of learning there. Like my dad's a tough ass, so I look up to him for that way. You know, don't let it, no one treads on me. My grandfather's a people person. You love him when you meet him. Like he's just one of those guys. He just creates a sense of just like love and whenever he's around you. And then my uncle, just because he's the brainiac, he's the entrepreneur, he's the money man. So he thinks so creatively, and he has such a different worldview, just like that I've looked up to my whole life. So I would say those three for me. What about you guys?
Probably my dad mainly. I mean, anyone who knows me and my family knows that I'm very similar to my dad. And
Yes, dude.
yeah, I mean, growing up, I was fortunate to have my dad around very often. He was very involved in my life. Yeah, that's looked up to
Yeah,
him mainly growing up.
Right on.
yeah, I'd say my dad too for sure. I didn't necessarily have a grandfather around enough. And then my uncle, I definitely always considered him when I was thinking about, like a vision of like what a man's supposed to be, or like maybe how I should act. So uncle, and then like I said earlier, sports, like athletes and stuff.
Yeah.
I remember one guy I remember looking up to a lot growing up was like Peyton Manning.
Oh
And I
yes.
know I know you got Brett Favre up on your wall over there. I'm sure you
Hell
looked up
yeah,
to
dude.
him
I
in a
didn't
few
even.
ways.
I did not even mention my boy Brett, but yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So yeah, I think that's a great question. That'd be. I think like that's a huge
Yeah.
thing. It's kind of like it's kind of like the saying, you are who you hang out with.
Right.
You could probably align that with you are who you look up to.
hmm
So that's huge.
Before we move on, I'll give mine real quick. So I've got three, and all three kind of hit on different pillars that have been like very fundamental and
Mm.
important to me. Um, a lot of which you don't like really appreciate or even see the manifestation until you're older, more matured, and aware of the things that make you who you are. So the first and foremost is easily Mike Manzer. He
Wow.
100% completely embodies the servant leadership mentality. I mean, he was literally our scout troop leader, like growing up. Like, so anything, um, growing up, I just remember going to scouts, and at the time, I was definitely a little shithead, didn't appreciate it as much. I was definitely bitching about going to Philmont. Oh, 2 weeks, going out in New Mexico to backpack. I don't want to do that. But like looking back now, it's like, holy shit, can I go redo that again? Like that was awesome.
Yeah.
Um, and Mike was always there. Like he was always the one orchestrating that, laying the foundation of for what Blake, Connor, my brothers, me, the Bowmans like knew to be like a leader. Like he was the one that instilled that foundation. And laid that groundwork for us. And like you don't realize that till you look back on it. So that was definitely first and foremost. Would be Mike Manzer. The second one, and I was talking about not realizing it until looking back, but it definitely was my dad, and I got definitely my like personality slash humor from him. My dad was a little fucker
Yeah.
at times, and I can definitely be that way.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And he had his own like pitfalls. I mentioned, like the alcoholism, stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff behind the curtain that people don't know until you open up and talk about it. So I got to see somebody who constantly like fought their demons day in and day out, and saw what it's like to battle with that side, like that darker side, and how you get through that. And then also his just raw intelligence I don't think I got all of it, but I think I got some of it. And even 40% of that's good enough for me because he was just a wizard. And just like his ability to conduct business and stuff like that. I mean, he wasn't an entrepreneur or anything like that. Um, but like his ability to travel to China for 2 months at a time, go be away from his family and still deliver results, stuff like that. But yeah, so definitely my dad there. And then the third and last, and I know I'm taking a minute on this, but definitely want to paint a good picture. So the third would be a mix. Well, shit. No, I probably have four now because
Do 4.
not
Go.
mention my uncle
Keep
John.
going.
So he's kind of the one. He works on cars up in Detroit, and saying he works on cars is a disservice. He's a huge mechanic.
Wow.
Works on Viper engines, stuff like that. I was on the design team for the Hellcat engine for Dodge. So
Damn.
just like crazy. Like anytime I want to go talk to cars, it's with him. And just one of like the most humble, like nice, innocent people I've ever met. So empathy, definitely get that from him. And then the last, so that would be my dad and uncle's dad. So my grandfather, Grandpa Don. Two things here. Um, Taking care of his health. My grandparents, they're like in their 80s, dude, and I swear they look like they just retired and are just now taking
Wow.
Social Security.
Wow,
That's
that's
good.
good.
That's great.
So crazy good genes there. And then also the idea of legacy is he embodies
Mm.
that. So my grandpa and grandma, they did it well. They're definitely, I wouldn't say they're like crazy wealthy, but they were steadfast with their finances. They didn't screw around when it came to that. Um, but then they also knew how to enjoy it. So like every kid in my family, I think I have like 14. They have 14 grandchildren in gross, and so every kid, I think it was like your 11th birthday, you get to go on a trip somewhere, and it's just you and them, and it's a whole week. So like just like the connection you get with your grandparents like from that is really huge. So like they did a good job building that family dynamic and that legacy. And then my grandpa in his retirement, he has a tractor for every grandchildren that he or grandchild that he worked on and restored and stuff. And he has
Wow.
this compound out in Nebraska where we all go, for Thanksgiving, stuff like that. And we go and do this annual tractor parade, like the whole family. So I
Dude,
know
that's
I
cool.
hit a lot on that, but just to sum it up, so it would be Mike Manzer easily for servant leadership. He fully embodies that. My dad, just for his ability to be raw and just himself, but then also be resilient. My Uncle John for his empathy and just, good naturedness, if that's even a word. And then my grandpa for the ability to have a legacy, you know,
Wow.
a vision to project on your family.
Dude, I can't believe I was about to cut you off there. That was the best part of the podcast.
Yeah, that was good.
That was awesome.
Yeah, I
And
was
it's
trying to cut
awesome.
myself
Just
up.
nah, dude. It was awesome just because like everything that you were saying. Like first off, it was just awesome hearing that perspective on your life, but it was all applicable to my life. Like hearing you say things about your family, and I'm thinking about things with my family, goofy ass things about my family. So it's
Yeah.
awesome, dude.
Yeah.
That was definitely the best part of the podcast. So thank you for asking that question. Anything else, guys? Get ready to wrap up?
Um,
No, what we want to do for future generations.
Oh shit. Yeah.
So kind of role
Thank
models
you.
we want to be.
Yeah. So since I'm yabbering right now, I guess I'll go ahead and talk. I know we're all gonna say we all want to start a family. So I'll start us off by saying that, like, that's definitely a huge priority for me. I want to start a family. I want to be head of my household. I want to lead. I want to build a legacy. I actually wrote that word down, Brian, just because I think that's awesome. I think that's so paramount, is building a legacy, you know, leaving the world better than you found it. And I think that comes with starting a family. And being, and just having a vision, like we've talked about in the past, about what you want to do. So that's awesome. I love that. But as far as like an action plan goes, you know, one thing that I'm really trying to, you know, kind of work on and take into action is becoming a mentor and role model for others, trying to get involved in my community. And I guess really what I've been doing, like off the bat, like I mentioned, I've got a big family. So just trying to like really take, you know, my siblings, taking my cousins, some of my younger family members just under my wing, and just like really developing true relationships with them, and like just getting closer, being there for them, asking them questions about what they want to do with their future, trying to pass some wisdom, whatever wisdom I got, not much, and just some things off to them. So that's one thing I'm really trying to do right now. And, you know, in the future, maybe near future, I want to be a coach. I want to coach a little league team, and just, you know, pass on, you know, just pass on some stuff there, and just be involved in the community, be involved in church, you know, all that kind of stuff. But that's kind of for me, man. I just want to be a role model, and just pass down some wisdom and be a role model, because I had plenty before me that helped me out and guided me along the way. What about you guys?
Yeah, mentorship's huge for me. I was lucky in that like my fraternity had a good mentorship program, which is something you don't really hear about in today's age. So a lot of good leaders before me and then after me too. So you have the mentorship and then the mentee relationship. So I've been on both sides, and they're both so different but amazing at the same time. I'm meeting with one of my mentors, I think Thursday over lunch, just doing a Zoom because COVID shit. Um, but yeah, definitely, I love being on the other side of it now and actually having some substance too, and then also life experience to go and help those that are in the shoes I was in 2-3 years ago. So
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. I also definitely, want to start a family, uh, be involved in my kids' lives, and also be involved in the community. I think that's super important. Um, Lord knows what scouting is going to be like in the future, but if it's not a complete shithole, I'd like to get my children involved in that, just because I think it was so impactful on my life.
Mm.
Yeah, just doing what you can to help other people out, to share, like you said, Garrett, share your wisdom, whenever that comes in bits and pieces, I'm sure. But just give back in whatever way that you can. Be there to help people out. Um, you know, teach teach people things. That's a super important thing. Being an instructor right now, I'm learning how to do that. Um, yeah, just you know, doing what you can to help other people out, help your family out. Uh, yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
definitely. Uh, yeah, same thing. Start a family. Yeah, that's number one. Like I said, I think that's very important for everybody. Getting biblical a little bit, like you were saying, Garrett. One of our commands from God is to be fruitful and multiply. So I think that's a big responsibility He places on our shoulders. A command He gave us to be fruitful and multiply. And if you can't make kids. Some people can't. Then you do it another way. You're being fruitful in your community, multiplying the resources around you, stuff like that. But yeah, I think that's hearing that about your relationship with Mike, Blake's dad, um, makes me think about the different things I want to do, being involved not only in my kids' lives, but then in their friends' lives, and being somebody just in the community that's a good, masculine role model. So, my dad, helped coach different sports teams growing up. So I was able to see him do that, and do a great job at it. Um, and then And then, like you said, with the sports teams, everyone has a role to play. And when we think about our roles as men, every man has multiple roles. You know, not fathers yet, but that'll be a role one day. We're sons right now. We're brothers. We all are. Yeah. So I had to think about that for a second. We're all brothers. We're all sons. Some of us are significant others. So you got to think about your roles and prioritize and make sure you're considering everybody. And that's part of, being a good man and a good man that knows his roles.
Yeah. I think my action plan would be, and I won't go on another tangent, it'll be relatively concise this time, but as I mentioned, my family dynamic and how it exists today, but just trying to be that role model for my brothers, whether it's intentional or not, just setting a good example for them because they're college age, dude. They don't want their older brother telling them how to do shit, but by like I mentioned earlier, leading by example and setting a good example for them, I can inadvertently do that.
Absolutely.
And I mean, I think we all agree starting a family eventually. My plan looks a little differently than probably waiting until my 30s. I mean, it's going to be at least 10 years for me. But finding a way in the interim.
You say that you'll be the first one to have a kid.
Oh, shit.
I'm not saying it's not possible, but
Next
it
year.
wouldn't be my choice.
Bold.
Yeah. But like finding a way in the interim to give others purpose, and a lot of that is with starting the business I want to start, stuff like that, and being fruitful in that way and growing that way. So
Yeah.
Awesome. Discipline, responsibility, finding your purpose, giving others purpose.
Integrity.
Integrity.
Very
That's what it
important.
means, boys. If it's important, if it's up to us, that's what it means. Guys, this has been one of my favorite podcasts we've done yet. Honestly, thought we had some.
Beautiful.
Thought you guys had some really cool perspective, and hope you all enjoyed it. This is Bonafide Talk. We will see you guys
Yeah,
next time.
Wait, real
Oh.
quick.
Okay.
Did you end it? You didn't end it, did you?
No, I
You
didn't
forgot
end it.
one part when you were listening to things on responsibility, all this stuff that you mentioned earlier. Another thing you were saying was gratitude.
Oh yeah,
So
thank
it's
you.
always important to be grateful for what we have and where it came from and all that.
Yeah.
So thank you, everyone that's watching.
Yes.
Thank you guys for being
we
here
are
with me
grateful
tonight.
for you.
I'm glad we could all come together and
I
make
love
this
you.
happen tonight.
That was
Love
creepy,
you,
Blake.
boys.
That was really creepy.
Love you, boys.
All right, fellas, we're grateful for each other, and we're grateful for you guys tuning in to listen. This is
We
Bonafide
just
Talk.
fucked that outro.
Cheers.
See ya.